it's doing. All right, perfect. Okay. Good morning, everybody. My name is Devin Pinches, and I am here with my wonderful co-host, Tom Fox. Welcome to Rise and Elevate episode 6. Today, we will dive into really inspiring conversation packed with insights, challenges, and strategies to help you rise above and elevate in all aspects of life. Tom, how are you doing this wonderful morning?
I'm doing wonderful this morning, Devin. Thank you for the introduction. And part of the impetus of our podcast, as you may have heard previously, is to give a little bit of hope, share a lesson, share a message. And the basis of what we do is based on sharing other people's stories. And what we ask of them is to share with us their bio and also to share 4 successes and 4 failures, or setbacks, as some people like to call them. And a tagline that we like to share with everyone is that a rising tide lifts all ships. And we want to give a message of rising together and sharing that message of hope. And as the name goes, rise and elevate together. So without further ado, Devin, for podcast number 6, I would love for you to introduce our guest.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tom. So today we are excited to welcome Peter Simon Liciaga, a true warrior in life's arena. Growing up in the South Bronx, Peter turned adversity into strength, escaping the streets to become a professional ballet dancer and later a martial arts leader. As the Program and Enrollment Director at Action Karate Mount Laurel, Peter has dedicated his life to empowering others through martial arts, his living strong principles, and community leadership. Peter's story is really one of resilience, adaptability, and purpose. So let's dive into how he inspires others to embrace challenges and build strength of mind, body, and spirit. Peter, welcome to Rise and Elevate. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me here. You guys look fabulous. Tom,
thank you.
And Devin, thank you so much for that intro. And I'm so excited to be here. So thank you so much for inviting me. And I can't wait to share and just to enjoy this experience.
Thank you so much. You know, Peter, we are doing this on a monthly basis now. And we started out with really just including a real estate oriented focus. But what we've come to accept is that our message goes beyond real estate. And we'd like to share this message with everyone, but also open up and broaden our scope of who we have on as guests. So you're our first non-real estate focused guest. And I thank you for joining us here today. And it's interesting as how we choose our guests. This week, Devin and I, or the previous weeks when we were looking for who was going to be our guest, Devin had someone that she had targeted, and we were reaching out to them to try and get this set up. And Devin responds back to me that they've been a little tardy in responding. And you and I sat together and we connected on many different levels. But I felt the energy and I'm like, Devin, I think I found our next guest.
You did. Yes.
And I wanted to say thank you for being here a part of this with us. So Peter, one of the things that I found that is so interesting is how you've taken your past and your upbringing in the South Bronx and how it's really focused your ability to rebound and to harness the ability to change in the face of adversity. So some people will say it's nurture versus nature. Some of it's hardwired, some of it's who we are. But I think you have a message of hope that you share with so many people. And I'd like to hear a little bit about how that upbringing coming out of the Bronx, and as you say, escaping from the Bronx, has helped you to create this foundation for who you are today.
Well, you know, thank you so much for asking that question. And you know, when I had so much struggles trying to really understand the big why. And I think many of us ask that why am I going through what I'm going through? And I think that starts, you know, very, very early in life. We're trying to find purpose and meaning. So that was me, just like everyone else. In my situation, everyone has their own stories and the situations, their journeys, their adventures. And mine was the South Bronx. and growing up in an environment that was very volatile, and I had to really struggle to find out why am I here, why. And I really thought that I was nothing, I meant nothing, and I was had this feeling of emptiness, but there was something deep down inside of me that knew that there was a purpose. And with all that I was going through and that was happening to me, there was always that seed that there was a reason. And so I held on to that. And, of course, growing up in the Bronx, ending up on the streets and as a gang member, that was still there. And every bad choice that I made wasn't right. And I didn't know anything better, but that was that seed there. And eventually, I think around 12 years old, I made a really, really bad choice. And I remember struggling after I made that choice and I said to myself, this is not what I want for my life. I had no idea what I was going to do, but I knew that wasn't it. And I really believe that was the beginning. And that was the beginning of me having this empowerment that there's something more to me. One of the questions I ask myself these days is, what can I do to make things better? What can I do to not make things worse? And what am I missing here? And back then, of course, I didn't have those words, those questions, but I knew it wasn't that. And one of my thoughts earlier today was about patience and the power of patience. Mm-hmm. Which is one of my principles that I talk about that becomes living and active. But that now in hindsight, look back to that time, I just had to be patient. Right. And of course, now decades later, I've seen the fruition of all those experiences. And
Peter, you struggled with kind of the feeling that purpose, feeling like you had something to contribute, right? And you had some low moments where you thought about shortening the end of your life, right?
Right.
And those thoughts can either overcome us or we can try to grow from that. And, your whole living strong is really a testament to your resilience, right? That ability to rebound, because as we say, it's not always what happens to us, but how we react or respond. And your response was continually searching for that next thing, right? And what I found interesting is that you became a performer, right? You became a professional ballet dancer. And if I have to think back through my years, I don't think I've ever met a professional ballet dancer. So kudos to you for being able to use that motion, that flow, that entertaining. But that really leads into an understanding of the body and space and time, which has helped you to create that connection with karate and the martial arts.
It's funny because, I grew up, watching movies. Gene Kelly was my biggest inspiration, and my decision to do ballet. And I was in my, I think I was around 19 years old, 20 years old.
Wow.
And I had this big idea. I was doing construction down in Florida. I escaped New York and went to Florida. And that's where it took about 2 years for the animal in me to get out.
Right.
And I got into construction. And then I wanted to do something more. And I thought about dance. And it was a small little town, Fort Pierce, Florida. And I did open up the Yellow Pages. I don't know if many people remember the Yellow Pages. I got a number for the local dance school, little Dolly Dinkle dance school. And I went there as a construction worker in sweatpants and took my first ballet class. But it was because of Gene Kelly. And, in hindsight, I created this timeline looking over my life, my ups and downs. And that was another pivotal moment. Of course, there was a pivotal moment that had me leave New York City, that went to Florida. But then the pivotal moment was going on into that ballet class. And it's all because of Gene Kelly. I wanted to be another Gene Kelly, athletic dancer, not a Fred Astaire. I saw myself like an athlete, Gene Kelly. And so that started it. And that started my journey into becoming a ballet dancer. And my dance teachers, the ultimate one was Natalie Nijinsky, who took this street kid who is a martial artist and turned him into a classical ballet dancer. And of course, in my case, I end up going back to New York and pursuing that in New York City. And so, but it was exciting. It's movement. And I tell people a lot of times that, I was a very shy, had very, very insecure. I had no sense of value and didn't have the luxury of formal education. I'm very street educated. And so I had no value. So I had to, part of me becoming who I am today. And I see it as this: God said, I had to put you in tights, on stage in tights, so that you could get out of your shell and find your voice, your language and your body and your voice, and be this man that I am calling you to be one day. And here we are that day as I progress and move forward.
Peter, did you learn any life lessons from, the discipline and artistry of becoming a professional, ballet performer?
It's amazing. Great question, because as a martial artist, I started martial arts when I was 9, and I started classical ballet 19 to 20. And so a lot of people would think that I got my discipline from martial arts, but I did not. It was through my classical ballet, because especially Natalie Nijinsky, incredible Russian trained ballet teacher, and she was hardcore and accepted no excuses. From my past. I would whine about my woe's me. I was always doing this woe's me kind of thing, and she just looked past all that and really built in me this discipline to overcome the pain. I remember the time she put me into point shoes so she can improve the strength of my feet in dance. And oh my goodness, unless you've been in point shoes, you have no idea the pain and the discipline it takes to overcome, to put that to the side and perform. And talk about being pulled up. You want to get away from your toes as much as possible. But the discipline definitely came through the ballet training, the physical aspect of ballet training, and then in a very creative way. We had to do it. One thing about classical ballet, you perform these incredible moves, and they have to look effortless. And the story is not about the moves. The story is about the story you're telling through your body, through your expression, and you're doing it with your body. It's very athletic. It's the hardest challenge, and that's where I got my flexibility from. That's where I get my musicality from. That's where I get even my martial. When you see me do martial arts and do these katas, these series of moves in martial arts, my flow and my fluidity comes from my classical ballet training, and my discipline comes from that.
That's interesting. So it's almost like the martial arts prepared your mind to accept that higher level of discipline and execution. And then the ballet helped you to put that into connection with mind and body and spirit.
Yeah. You could definitely see it that way. I see with martial arts, because I needed to be a warrior. This is what I really connected with martial arts. The moment I was invited to get on it was in a community center on the tile floor that was over concrete. And I went in there, and it was brutal. I was 9 years old, and with these, it was just very different back then, very brutal, very, very physical, a lot of pain, but that's what I needed. And I needed an environment to be trained to have resilience, because my journey, my adventure needed that of me. And there's a saying that someone that I listen to a lot says that things don't happen, they happen to you, they happen for you. So me going into martial arts was for me to really embrace this warrior mindset so that I can live strong. And what ballet did was give me the creativity, the expression, and also help me find my voice and my voice with my body, with my vocals, and acting helped with that, being on stage, all that. My performing arts career really helped me find Peter Liciaga, albeit I was playing characters. Still, I became confident of who I was and what I had to offer. So now my stage is as Peter Simon Liciaga, me, not a character, not Bernardo from West Side Story, not Rocky from this show or that show, but from now it's Peter Liciaga. And now I have the voice, I have the body, I have the creativity, and I have all these other principles that I talk about so that I can live strong and inspire hope in others, which is why I think that's so important for me today. My mission, 100%.
That's awesome.
So at what point, Peter, so we've gone from we've done the Bronx, we did martial arts from 9, we've done professional ballet in like New York. And then from what I've seen, we've gone to opening your own karate school. Explain how we've gone from professional ballet to, I want to do this. I want to start something and change the lives of other children and possibly adults with your karate school.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. It's so important because ballet took me out of, I got out of the streets, went to dance, went back to New York, met all these amazing creatives. And this is where I met my wife in 1986. She's a singer dancer, and we met and started building a life together. And then we were touring. We were in Europe. We were living in Europe at the time, touring the United States, Japan, Canada, doing these amazing shows, living an amazing life, traveling, meeting people all over the world. And just, you know, again, God just really preparing me. And then finally came, I went in as an older performer.
Okay.
And I knew it was inevitable that this was not sustainable. And so we wanted to start a family. So we decided that we would start a family. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, so I need to find a way to earn a living. I can't keep touring, because I saw families that toured with their kids. And it wasn't something that Renee and I, my wife, Renee, we didn't want that. So I said, you know what? Martial arts is my passion. I love teaching martial arts because I want to teach people this. One of the biggest principles I was taught was this idea of having this indomitable spirit. And so I wanted to start teaching that. And of course, I had become a Christian. My wife and I became Christians. So I was on a track to be a minister. So I was taking what my core beliefs were, and then bring it to the mass. They became living and active for me. I wanted to teach that. So, well, why not? So Renee says, okay. So we came back to the US and we invested all this money for me to start my karate program. And it was just time. And it was 1999. And then 2000, we had our first child, and the rest is history, which brings me to today as that head instructor or program director at Action Karate Mount Laurel.
That's amazing. And so, Peter, how many students do you have at the karate school?
Yeah, you would say we have about 200 students. Okay. Up and every month it changes up and down. Right. But we average about 200 students at our location. We have about 2,500 square feet.
And have your students taught you a life lesson? Without
question. And it's as recent as yesterday, I had a conversation with a parent, and one of the things I see that God's gifted me with is working with children with special needs. And this parent has a child with special needs, nonverbal. And so and again, I was gifted with this ability to connect very quickly and communicate in a way that helped their child come out of themselves and be expressive in a way that really empowered them. And the parent was empowered by this. And he was just expressing his gratitude for that. And so what that did is it helps me to understand the importance of what I'm doing. There are times where, and I remember years ago, I spoke to educators because they had this sense of hopelessness because they weren't connecting to what they perceived connecting to anyone. And this parent reminded me that I was making a connection. And that ties into my sense and desire to be useful and have meaning, and that my life, all this that I went through, in this moment in time, is important because of this moment that I have with this parent and this child. And that just confirms that. And then it helps me to become better. I remember when I first started martial arts, what I learned from the students was that I just wanted to teach kicks and punches and some of these great things I learned on the mats for me. I had no idea about ADD or ADHD, Tourette's, Asperger's, spectrum. I had no idea about any of that. And then all of a sudden now, here I am introduced to not only regular kids that have all their things. My first introduction to working with kids at 3 years old was somebody peeing in the middle of my class. I said, oops. But then meeting children that have these unique challenges and uniqueness about them that I had to learn. So they taught me how to become an incredible communicator, an incredible teacher, to take this idea, talking to Tom earlier today, but one of the things I'm working on is teaching this idea of connection. And they helped me to become better at connecting to them in their unique way. And that's why I meet with all our families and all the students one-on-one first, so I could get to know them and find out how can I help them. I need to learn how they learn. So that's how they teach me. And every time I meet with someone, that's a learning experience for me, which is very exciting.
Peter, you talk about that connecting with them. And I think it goes back to the concept of being present, right? Focusing on what's in front of us. And when we do that, all the other weight of the world kind of is sloughed off, even just for a moment, right? And having the ability to be present and to focus on what's in front of us allows us to calm our mind, allows us to get rid of that clutter. And when we can do that, we can make a difference, right? Even if it's the tiniest little impact. And what I love about how your message is and what you're doing is you're making a difference in people's lives. And it may just be one little kid at a time, or it may be one family at a time, or it might be 200 or however many are in a class during a moment in time. But you're making that impact and helping them to kind of start to think differently, right? So one of the things that I'd love to hear a little bit more about is, what does it mean to you, or if someone asks you, what does it mean to live a strong life? What does that mean to you?
That means in any given moment, your present focus, living in that moment, because that moment has value. The future gives you hope. The past maybe gives you insight. Okay, but the power of the future and the past is in that very moment. And for me, my ability to be empowered and to live strong is I recognize that and be in the moment. Meeting Devin for the first time, that empowers me in this very moment. And building my relationship with you, it empowers me. And so by empowering me, that's that ripple effect. That one that I meet, and all I need to do is meet one person, touch one person. One person has to see or listen to my podcast or read a word from me, just one, because then that ripple effect, to me, that's power. And so for me, I look over my life. There's a song that says, when I look back over my life, I can see, and I can see how everything makes sense. And it empowers me right now. So if I say to myself, okay, I want to live a strong life. Okay. And it starts in this very moment. How can I do that? By connecting to others. And if I can do that, then in this very moment, I am empowered, and I can look forward to putting my head on my bed with a smile on my face and saying to myself, it is well. I have done all that I can to live a strong life. And at the same time, empower others, bring hope to others, so that they will choose to do it at any given moment, more often than not, to choose to live strong in that very moment, whether it's in the darkness or in the light, in the valley or at the mountaintop. But more importantly, in the valley. I just finished reading a book called Comfort in Darkness. And, that really resonates with me, because the author of it was Hickson Gracie, was diagnosed 2 years ago with Parkinson's. And so he's talking about how he's battling through that and seeing that as a challenge and living strong in his moment. And that's what that means to me in every given moment. That's what it means for me to live strong. And that's my mission.
So you're promoting not only a strong mind with focus and discipline, right? But you're also promoting a strong body and having the two of them work together. I've read recently that a body in motion and the contraction of our muscles helps to create and release some of the chemical compounds that make us think and feel better, to make us feel cleaner, right? When we sit on the couch and, are doing nothing, although we think we're resting, we're really wasting away if we are a couch potato by nature. We all need a time to separate, to decompress, to relax. But when we're active and when we're moving and connecting, right? That's the thing that you're promoting, is that you're connecting the students, the parents, the philosophy, right? All of that together. I think your message and your story are one that's easily relatable, right? Because the challenges that we face are opportunities to grow, are opportunities to learn, right? And thus the reason that Devin and I decided to do this podcast. And I'll tell you, Peter, when I spoke to Devin the first time about doing a podcast, she's like, "Oh no, no." And then I challenged her for us to do this live and then record it and share it as well. And she's like, "Well, no, we can't." And I'm like, "We can." And it's a simple step, right? We just need to take, like they say, 1,000-mile journey starts with just the first step. And when we're loaded with tasks, all we need to do is start the first one. And I, by nature, am a bit of a procrastinist, right? I procrastinate all the time, although probably less now because I'm intellectual about it. I'm thinking about what I'm not supposed to be doing or what I'm supposed to be doing, right? And making that choice to move forward. So each day when we're faced with these challenges, I look at things a little differently because of that message of hope that you talk about, right? Because of the ability for us to connect. And I feel like I gain energy from Devin and from you, Peter, and this message that we're sharing, right? And one of the things that I wrote down and that we try to use a quote each week that's inspirational or connecting in it, and it's very apropos with our podcast, and it's from Washington Irving. And it says, "Little minds are tamed and subdued by misfortune, but great minds rise above it." Right. And that's the lesson that we want to share, that there's always a way out. There's always someone there that we can connect with that can help us out of that valley, as you put it. Right. So Peter, I'm really proud of the fact that you are connecting in the community, that you're using your message and your direction to go into the next level. I really appreciate how you've helped us kind of learn a little bit more about you, about your journey. And I'll share with our podcast community today. Today, you offered to our BNI group, when we were meeting together this morning, an opportunity to come and learn a little bit more about your karate studio and what you're teaching. And I'd like to officially accept on air that challenge of coming out and learning a little bit more about that with you. So I really appreciate your sharing your time, your energy, and your thoughts with us today.
Well, thank you so much. I know with the quote, you reminded me of a quote that was given to me. It was, and I believe it's from Emily Dickinson, when, you don't know how tall you can stand until you are called to rise. And so that was told to me when I was going through one of my mentors, when I was going through a hard, dark time, and I was in the darkness. And so that reminded me. So thank you so much for that. Thank you for having me and inviting me and giving me an opportunity to share my heart. And I think Devin right now is inspired by you, and also now challenged that, oh my gosh, if he's going to get on the mats, I have to get on the mats.
I know. I need to come up to New Jersey. I'm a South Florida girl, but no, next time I'm in New Jersey, Peter.
I've got friends down in Florida, so everywhere. But, and then, just very quickly, it's all about taking my thoughts and making them living and active. That's why it's important that, Tom, everyone that I invited, get on the mats, because if we talk about discipline, we could be on that couch talking about discipline, self-control, self-awareness, focus, present focus, but it becomes living and active on the mats. You can really feel it. And that's, again, a physical connection. So thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate you guys. And I can't wait to hear people's responses. And it's open to everyone that's interested. I want everyone to get on the mats and really experience that. And it's not for everyone. However, connection is. And so connect with me.
Thank you so much, Peter. It was a pleasure meeting you. Thank you for joining us for Rise and Elevate episode 6. Tom, a pleasure as always to have you as a co-host, and I look forward to episode 7. Thank you, guys.
All right. Have a great day. Thank you again, Peter and Devin. Great job today.